Greetings and love to all of you. Our class this evening is on humility. But I'd like to talk about it in a rather specific way. And that way could, I guess, be best summed up by saying we'll be talking about being humble light bearers as opposed to being egotistical doom and gloomers. I know it sounds kind of funny, but something recently came up and I thought, this is something worth talking about. There's some spiritual principles here that are important, and especially during this time. What it was that came up was a devotee came to me and she had hard copy of an email that had been sent to her husband. And it was a 3-page litany of these dire predictions. And her husband was quite upset by it and really concerned for what may happen to his family. So I'd like to just share with you just a very, very few of the points from that email. Dire adversities are coming. There will be a pole shift. A comet will come close to the earth and leave debris hitting the earth, leaving poisonous gases in the atmosphere. America will be attacked and caught off guard. World War III will break out and be very destructive. And at the end of the 3 pages, the person said, "I hope this helps." I hope this helps. Well, it does help. It helps to bring these kind of things closer to manifestation. And I'd like to talk just a couple of minutes about why this is so. Think about how God creates. In the beginning, there were the thoughts of God. Pure, perfect light of God with the divine qualities inherent in that. And then comes the beautiful, luminous astral energy. And that energy becomes compacted into this gross material plane. And we're God's children, and we create in exactly the same way. That beautiful, perfect light of God with all those divine qualities are present there in the light of the 1,000-petal lotus. We have our thoughts. We flow energy into those thoughts. Depending on the power of those thoughts and the amount of energy we put into them, they manifest on this physical plane. It's like we own a broadcasting station. And we want to increase the power of that broadcasting station. So we practice the guru-given techniques of meditation, and this does increase the broadcasting power, the power of our mind. But we have to realize our minds aren't only influencing us, but they're influencing others as well. So what kind of programs are we broadcasting? Are they about love, beauty, truth, light, joy? Or are they about disease, death, and destruction? Brother Bhaktananda used to be very big on this, and he used to say, you have to be careful of the kinds of thoughts that you think, especially after you begin to meditate, because the mind becomes more powerful and has a greater materializing power. Now, I'm not talking about this email this evening to make anybody feel bad if they wrote the email or if they forwarded it, or, I'm not. I really am not. But it provides such a great illustration of why we should watch the quality of our thoughts. And we should make those conscious decisions, what we share with others. Let me read something from Master. The fruits of one's spiritual awakening are a blessing not only on one's own life, but the world at large. Every person sows good or bad actions in the soil of his life. And not only does he reap the karmic harvest of those actions, but he makes others reap them as well. If a person writes a degrading novel, all who read it reap the evil effects of the author's thoughts. The law of cause and effect operates in even subtler ways as well. The actions of each individual leave electromagnetic etchings in his brain, influencing his future actions. And they also leave vibrational traces in the ether, which register in and influence the minds of others. So do you see how important the quality of our thoughts really is? It's not that it's only influencing our lives. Our thoughts are not just self-contained. They're being left in the ether to register in the minds of other people. We said that sharing thoughts about the dire predictions helps to bring them closer to manifestation. So do you see how that is so? That when we're thinking these thoughts, putting energy into them, putting them on the internet, leaving the traces in the ether, other people think about it, their emotions are involved, more energy is involved in it. Thought plus energy brings manifestation. When we talk about the light and the dark, it's not just poetic. It's not just poetic. We're talking about that actual spiritual light of God. Many of you have seen that light in the spiritual eye or in the brain. It's the actual spiritual light. And there is that actual darkening power of Maya or Satan that obscures that light of God, and hence those divine qualities that are inherent in that light. But where do these dark thoughts come from? In the Bible it says, the devil was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. He's from the beginning, because he's inherent in creation from the beginning of time. And he's a murderer. He kills our spiritual aspirations. And he's a liar. He doesn't tell us the truth about the nature, the illusory nature of this creation. Master said the sole function of Satan or Maya is to attempt to divert man from spirit to matter, from reality to unreality. That pure, perfect light of God is right here, but as we mentioned, there's the thoughts, and then there's the layer of the astral energy, and then there's this gross vibration of the physical plane. But when we think those positive, uplifting thoughts, when we create beauty and harmony, when we express love, kindness, compassion, at those times, that veil of Maya is becoming more sheer. It's letting a little more of the light, a little more of those qualities through our life and out into the world. But when we concentrate on the opposite, it's making that veil more and more opaque. Why is there such a fascination with the doom and gloom which obscures that light? Well, I know from counseling that some people think that there's something very spiritual about being involved with predictions and anything of a supernatural sort of nature. The ego's pleased that it can be involved with all this supernatural phenomena. But there's nothing spiritual about it. Nothing spiritual at all about it. Because if you think about what's really spiritual, always leads toward that light of spirit. And the other, the darkening, is leading us away from that light. But there's a more fundamental reason why people get involved with these things. Recently, a devotee emailed me about the doom and the gloomers, and he said there must be a vicarious thrill some people feel pondering disasters. And he's right. The human mind loves excitement. It does, It gets the emotions stirred up, and we feel alive. It's exciting. It reminds me of children who get together and tell ghost stories and watch horror movies. They do this, and it's fun. It's exciting, and it's so scary. Well, it was fun until they're alone in their bed. And they begin to hear the floor creak, and the shadows on the wall are moving. It's not fun anymore. It's become real fear. Same thing. I know some people enjoy getting together and talking about all the predictions and when it may happen, but eventually those thoughts cause very real fears in themselves and in others. Strong emotions have a lot of energy. Have you ever been really afraid and you feel that energy in the heart, in the chest there? Remember, we said that thoughts plus energy equals the manifestation. This is why Master said, fear attracts the object of fear. Fear attracts the object of fear. Because that fear is energizing those thoughts, and therefore bringing them closer to manifestation. It's interesting in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna, in listing the 26 ennobling qualities, what's the one that he puts first? Fearlessness, right. And Master said that this was not just coincidental. He said the reason it was put first is because fearlessness is the foundation of the spiritual life. So when Satan or Maya can erode that foundation by creating fear in us, he's fulfilling his job. So do you see how sinister this spreading doom and gloom which creates fear really is? It's undermining the foundation of people's spiritual life. What happens when we're afraid? When we're afraid, the will is paralyzed. When we're afraid, the will is paralyzed. Have you ever heard that expression, frozen with fear? You can't do anything. You're froze with fear. It paralyzes the willpower. Our beloved Ma just last fall said, I never let my consciousness or that of the devotees here be dragged down by worries or fear about what may or may not happen. Fear destroys self-motivating willpower and well-being. Cultivate courage, positive thinking, and faith in God's protection. We can concentrate on the object of fear, or, as Ma said, we can concentrate in the opposite direction and cultivate courage, positive thinking, and faith in God's protection. There's a quote about fear which I've always liked very much. And that is, fear knocked at the door. Faith answered. No one was there. It's good, isn't it? Fear knocked at the door. Faith answered. No one was there. What does Master equate fearlessness with? Faith. He equates it with faith. He said, fearlessness means faith in God, faith in His protection, His justice, His wisdom, His mercy, His love, His omnipresence. But realizing we've got a very varied audience here, for those of you who like predictions about destruction, I'll share with you one that Master did give back in 1948. He said, I make one prediction now. The world is not going down to destruction. So don't be frightened. Believe in your Father. He will protect you if you remember His ideals, if you keep faith in Him. Don't be frightened. Believe in your Father. He will protect you if you remember His ideals, if you keep faith in Him. This doesn't mean that nothing unpleasant outwardly is going to happen. No, Master did say that there would be financial crises, there would be wars, there would be natural catastrophes. These are the karmic results, the mass karma of mankind's wrong thoughts and wrong actions. So I'm not saying that these things are not going to happen. Very likely things may get worse before they get worse. That's about the extent of my indulgence in the doom and gloom. But seriously, fear of these types of things, it really does. It shows a lack of faith in God and Guru. But if there is fear, use it to your advantage. In some of the martial arts, like Aikido, a person uses the attacking opponent's force to throw the opponent. And this can be a very, very helpful attitude toward life for the devotee. Whatever circumstances in life are thrown at us, we can use those to our advantage if we were asking, what is the lesson I'm to learn here? What's the spiritual quality that I can acquire from this? What is the correct behavior in this situation? What is the right attitude to have in a situation like this? If we're doing this, no matter what that circumstance is, we're using it to our advantage and we're growing spiritually. Master said when we're trying to change something in our nature, concentrate in the opposite direction. So if there's that fear, cultivate more faith in God and Guru. Let it be an impetus to meditate longer and deeper so that you can feel that blessed assurance, so you can feel that deep peace, that knowing that everything is all right, everything is exactly as it should be. That deep peace and blessed assurance are qualities of our soul. And Master said, all men are meant to realize that soul consciousness can triumph over every external disaster. Soul consciousness can triumph over every external disaster. And of course it's true, because in that soul consciousness, we realize what we are not and what we really are. One of my favorite affirmations is, I am not this body which changes and passes away. I'm not this mind which beholds nothing but change. I'm the immortal blissful soul, ever one with thee. If we could just for once get a glimpse of that soul consciousness, there would be no fear. We would realize we're that immortal blissful consciousness of God. But what is it that we fear? Death. Someone was telling me recently that research had been done about fear, and that there was only one thing that people actually feared more than death. You know what it is? Public speaking. I mean, this was supposed to be the results of an actual research. So you see, this evening I'm cultivating fearlessness. Actually, it's much easier talking with brother and sister disciples, but Master did say death is perhaps the ultimate challenge of faith in man. Fear of this inevitability is foolish. It comes only once in a lifetime. And after it has come, the experience is over without having affected our true identity or diminished in any way our real being. Lord Krishna said, there is no death. There is no death. Consciousness, light, it doesn't die. There's no death. But when we focus on the negative aspects, like these dire predictions, it creates a seeming reality for this physical form and this physical creation. It creates the concern about that. So the consciousness is no more on that soul consciousness, on that pure love and light and joy. It's on this body and on this physical creation. Remember, Master said the sole function of Satan or Maya is to attempt to divert man from spirit to matter, from reality to unreality. So we should avoid those things and people that drag the consciousness down. We should constantly affirm that we are that immortal light of God. Remember the story from the autobiography where Master was meditating at his Gopur Road home during World War I. And in his meditation, his consciousness was transferred to the captain of a battleship. And there was this exchange of fire between the ship and the shore batteries. And the ship was hit and there was a big explosion. The captain and the few surviving sailors jumped in the water. The captain made it to the shore only to be shot in the chest. And as he lay there dying, the consciousness was transferred back to Master, meditating at Gopur Road. And then Master said, hysterical tears poured forth as I joyfully stroked and pinched my regained possession, a body free from a bullet hole in the breast. I rocked to and fro, inhaling and exhaling to assure myself that I was alive. Amidst these self-gratulations, again I found my consciousness transferred to the captain's dead body by the gory shore. Utter confusion of mind came upon me. Lord, I prayed, am I dead or alive? A dazzling play of light filled the whole horizon. A soft rumbling vibration formed itself into words. What has life or death to do with light? In the image of my light, I have made you. The relativities of life and death belong to the cosmic dream. Behold your dreamless being. Awake, my child, awake. We are literally children of that divine light. Master said, you are your own Savior as soon as you realize, I am light itself. I am light itself. But if we are children of that light, what can we do to allow more of that light to express through our lives, to come into the world? Recently, I received a satsang question which said, as the financial crisis has been unfolding, I have been receiving email from devotees which state pretty dire predictions, such as widespread destruction by a comet. I find them useless in my life because there's no practical message, such as, leave your home at 2 o'clock on Tuesday and you'll be fine. some of these messages, the practical aspect is always left off. But this person went on to ask, is there really any practical advice for the dark period beyond just doing your best in the present moment? Well, we need to be spiritual realists. We need to be practical. We need to do our part and not just think, oh, well, God will just take care of everything for me. It's like those of us that live in earthquake country. You know, we have our earthquake bag with some of the necessities in it and keep it in a convenient place, and then we forget about it. We can do the practical things and then forget it. We don't have to get up every morning, go online, check the seismic reports, and try to figure out when the big one is coming. No, you do the practical things and forget it. Dismiss it from the consciousness. But in the little booklet, World Crisis, Master does talk about some of the practical things that you can do. There are a number of them, really, and I don't want to go over all of them here, but one of the things he really stresses is when he said, how can you meet the world crisis that is coming? The best way is to adopt plain living and high thinking. Adopt plain living and high thinking. And we can all find ways of simplifying our lives. We can all try to keep the consciousness uplifted into those spiritual thoughts. When we live simply and keep the consciousness uplifted, we feel joy. That presence of the divine is there. As we said, it's always there. We are children of that light, and it has all those divine qualities. We feel that joy. We don't have to constantly have something new to make us happy. We experience that joy directly from its source. And if we keep the consciousness uplifted, it continues. But if that consciousness drops and we get engrossed in these more negative aspects, it shuts out the joy. We have a very practical reason to simplify our lives and to keep the consciousness uplifted so we can live in that state of joy. One thing we can do to help the situation at this time too is to have the spiritual strength to be light bearers. To have the spiritual strength to let people know you don't want to hear their doom and gloom recitations. Not in a self-righteous way, because then that's just ego. But in a very simple, humble way, based on spiritual principles. This is not good for you, it's not good for me, it's not good for the world family. So again, it's like one devotee told another one when the one started in with all the doom and gloom. This devotee said, I don't have to worry about that. I have a guru. I thought that was so good. I don't have to worry about it. I have a guru. So let others know in a nice but firm way that you don't want to join their doom and gloomers club. But you may ask, well, what do you do in a social setting or at work when the conversation goes negative? Well, again, you have the responsibility as disciples of Master to be light bearers in those situations. You can put it in your own words, but bring light to that situation. You can say something like, you know that thoughts, positive thoughts, can really materialize positive things in our lives. And the same negative things can too. I'm a real firm believer in the power of positive thinking and that thought has materializing power. And I just don't go there. I need positive things to manifest in my life. Put it in your own words, but speak your truth. Speak your truth. And even if a person doesn't acknowledge it, they will respect it because the soul always recognizes truth. And you may ask, well, why do the saints even mention these predictions? One of the main reasons is that they're saying, if you don't start behaving, Divine Mother's going to give you a spanking. That's why they're doing it. The saints see the karmic potential, and they see that if things don't change, these are the inevitable results of what is building here. And so they're trying to give us a warning so that we can change our ways of thinking, our ways of acting, so that we can help to mitigate or nullify those karmic potentials so that we don't have to go through so much of the suffering. So one of the things that we can do to bring more light into the world is simply living a spiritual life. Simply living a spiritual life. Praying for others and for world peace. Tremendous way of bringing that light into the world. When we're praying for others, it's really putting the ego aside, and we're becoming that humble channel for radiating God's light to reach out to others. This is something that started with Master. And then Ma and a few of those close disciples around him would join in praying for others. And then it became all the monks and nuns. And then it became the worldwide prayer circle, which now there's members all over the world. So again, it's a wonderful way to get out of ourselves and give to the world, praying for others. Talking about getting out of ourselves, someone recently sent me a definition of an egotist, which I very much liked. It said, egotist, a person of poor taste, more interested in himself than in me. Actually, it's pretty close to a good definition. It could be a person more interested in himself than in others. So when we pray for others in world peace, we are getting out of ourselves and being more interested in the welfare of others. Our beloved Ma said, when you are affirming healing for yourself or others, visualize the tremendous force of God's healing power as a white light surrounding you or the person for whom you are praying. Feel that it is melting away all illness and imperfection. Every uplifting thought we think, every prayer we utter, every good action we perform is impregnated with God's power. We can manifest this power in greater and greater ways as our faith becomes stronger and our love for God becomes deeper. So praying for others in world peace is a tremendous way of bringing light to the world. But the greatest way of bringing in more light is to have that actual communion with God ourselves. And I know from talking to devotees from time to time, there's this attitude that, yes, I meditate and I live a spiritual life, but it's really the saints, those exalted beings that have the communion with God. This is not true. This is not true. Each and every one of us is a child of God. Each and every one of us can have our own unique communion with the divine. I'd just like to share one story with you. And this was a devotee, simple, humble devotee, one of your brothers. And he got involved in SRF back in the 1970s. And about 4 or 5 years ago, his situation changed so that he could spend more time in his meditation. He could really felt he could make more of effort, and he was really trying to take his meditations to a different level. And one of the things he did during this time was to practice the energization exercises and meditate in a storeroom at work on his lunch hour. And he had been doing this for about 3 months. And then one day, during his noon meditation, he heard a beautiful feminine voice. And it said, "Something wonderful is in store for you." And he thought, no, this is my imagination. But almost every noon meditation, for weeks, he heard that same feminine voice, "Something wonderful is in store for you." The SRF group that this devotee and his wife attended were having a weekend retreat. And on the last day of the retreat, on Sunday morning, at breakfast, the wife noticed her husband sitting there at breakfast with his eyes closed, very still, a slight smile on his lips. And she thought, this is unusual. He doesn't usually meditate in public like this. Well, the devotees were supposed to go and pack their cars right after breakfast before having the Sunday service. So this lady got up, she went back, she started packing. She expected her husband to follow, but he didn't. So after half an hour, she went back to the dining room. Her husband still sitting there, his exact same position. So she leaned over and whispered in his ear, "I need your help." She went back. After some time, he still didn't show up. So she went back. There he is again, still in the same position. So she asked him, said, "Can you walk?" And with great effort, he said, "No, neither can I open my eyes." She went and got another devotee to help her to get him up, take him to the room. What had happened to this devotee? It was something he didn't want to talk about, but over a period of time, it came out to his wife and to a minister. He was sitting at breakfast, and he started looking at all the devotees. And as he did, he felt this tremendous feeling of love in his heart. And he said it was like he could see the beauty and uniqueness of each soul. And then his consciousness went down the tunnel of the spiritual eye into a place, he said, was the most intense bliss imaginable. He was completely forgetful of the body and just in that place of pure bliss and love. He said he didn't know why this happened to him, but he said what he did know is that none of us know when it will happen to us. And he's absolutely right. Each one of us can have our own unique experience of that communion with God. And this is one of the greatest joys of being a minister for me, is being able to hear from devotees that communion with God that they are experiencing, whether it's with the Om or in the light, or whether it is that intense feeling of divine love in the heart, just radiating such heat from the heart. Whatever it is. And I think this is so beautiful. The Master would be so pleased. Master is so pleased. Because this was why he came. to give us the means so that each one of us can have that divine communion, so that we can know that we are those children of God. Sir John Templeton said, "The true meaning of humility is knowing that the personal self is a vehicle of a higher power." It's beautiful, isn't it? The true meaning of humility is knowing that the personal self is a vehicle of a higher power. It's through communion, through the actual communion with God, that we realize this, that we realize that this body is a temple of God, and the Spirit of God dwells within us. It's in that communion that we know that we are children of that higher power. Once we experience this, then we become those humble light bearers, because we realize that it's God's light reflecting through us. We're really doing nothing. God is the doer. All we're doing is allowing that light to shine through. Master used the phrase Kriya Yogis scattered like shining jewels over the earth. And to become through deep meditation those shining jewels, reflecting that light of a higher power, this is the greatest thing that we can do to prepare for difficult times. It's the greatest thing that we can do to strike at the very cause of difficult times. It's what we can do to neutralize the cause of those difficult times. During this week, we feel such tremendous love, such joy, such sense of well-being. We're all those jewels. We're those Kriya Yogi jewels that Master talked about. And what happens at the end of the week? Those jewels are scattered all over the earth again to become light bearers, to become spiritual radiums, radiating that spiritual light, those spiritual qualities to help push back that darkness of Maya during these times. Master said, only a mighty flood of the light of truth through actual communion with God can dispel the gathered darkness of the ages. Only a mighty flood of the light of truth through actual communion with God can dispel the gathered darkness of the ages. The two greatest things that we can do to have that actual communion with God forms the very basis of our Guru's teachings. And the first one is deep meditation. And I mention here the word deep meditation. Because if there is no depth to it, there will be little or no communion. But what do we mean by deep meditation? As strange as it may sound, the answer lies in a saying that a devotee saw on the front of a t-shirt. Honest. And this is the saying: meditation is not what you think. Meditation is not what you think. I saw it took some of you a little while to get that. But it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. That's when deep meditation starts, when we get beyond thought. So meditation is not what we think. We can't think our way into God communion. We have to experience our way into God communion. And we have that experience by getting beyond thought, because God is beyond thought. God is what everything is coming out of. We need to get beyond the thoughts. Many, if not all, devotees reach a middle ground in their meditations. And what is this middle ground? And what's the next step for moving on? And there definitely is a next step. But I think the reason that many of us don't take that step is because it's something very nebulous to us. We're not sure what that is. But there is a missing link, so to speak, between the outer and the inner aspects of yoga. And there is a pivotal point, so to speak, where we move from the outer aspects into the inner aspects. Let's think about it in terms of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. It starts out with yama, niyama, the right behaviors, asana, the right posture, pranayama, life force control. All four of these have to do with the outer aspects of yoga. Even pranayama, as great as pranayama is, it's usually working with the physical breath as a means to get hold of or to become aware of and begin to work with the prana, the life force. So those are the outer aspects. Well, let's look at the inner aspects. What is there? Dharana, concentration. Dhyana, meditation, where that concentration deepens and there begins to be the expansion. And then the last, samadhi, absorption, superconscious experience. So you have the outer, you have the inner. And what is that pivotal point that connects the two? Pratyahara. Pratyahara. The Master defines pratyahara very simply this way. Pratyahara signifies the state of the mind when it is disconnected from the sense telephones. That is, the consciousness is so withdrawn that we no longer get the sensory input. And we think, well, this is not easy to do. And we're right, it's not. But also, we have to think it's very possible because we do it every night when we go to sleep. What happens when we go to sleep? All that energy withdraws, shuts off all the stimulus to the senses. That's the reason for Kriya. Reversing. That energy's always going out through the senses. But in sleep it withdraws. And we need to get so proficient in our practice of Kriya, so intent, and doing enough Kriyas, that we can feel that energy withdraw. And when it withdraws enough into the spine and brain, then we have that actual communion with God. Pranayama is practiced for interiorizing the consciousness. In fact, Master said that you do not achieve pratyahara unless you keep in mind the reason for why you're practicing pranayama. We have to keep in mind we're practicing pranayama to achieve that state of pratyahara so that we can then have those higher or deeper levels of the practice of Kriya or the deeper practice of meditation where there is the concentration, there is the meditation, there is that sense of absorption in that samadhi state. One of the devotees at Hollywood Temple will often do some of the energization exercises with his little 5-year-old son, and then they'll meditate together for a few minutes. So one day recently, the father told his little boy, "Go take your bath and then we'll meditate together." And the little boy said, "Can we exercise and meditate before my bath?" And you would think, well, that's a pretty normal response from a 5-year-old. Can't we do something other than maybe have to go take a bath? But this little boy, he's a unique little soul. He said, "Can we exercise and meditate before my bath? I want to feel God, and I feel Him more when I meditate than in my bath." So this young man has already realized where we find God in meditation, not in the bathtub. But this is the goal, is to be able to have deep meditation so we can feel that presence of God, so we can have that actual communion. I said the two greatest things that lead to divine communion form the basis of Master's teachings, and that the first is this deep meditation. The second one is summed up in a phrase from the autobiography of a yogi, where Master is quoting from the song of Mirabai. And she's saying, "If by bathing daily God could be realized, sooner would I be a whale in the deep. If by eating roots and fruits He could be known, gladly would I choose the form of a goat." And she goes on like this for some time, and then she concludes, Mirabai knows that to find the Divine One, the only indispensable is love. This is one of those keys on the spiritual path. The only indispensable is love. Expressing our love and gratitude to the divine is certainly a way of practicing devotion. I know devotees that are constantly talking to the divine, usually to Master, just throughout the day. "Thank you for the parking spot, Master. That was a great movie, Master. Thanks for the tickets. That was an inspiring service." Just almost incessantly talking to Master, relating everything to Master. And this is great. We should all get in the habit of sharing even these little mundane things with the divine. But real devotion is deeper than this. We should also get in the habit of expressing that love to the divine in our meditation. Just feeling that it's just you and God or Guru right there. And there's this communication. You're just talking directly. This can be done anytime during your meditation, but it's a wonderful way to end your meditation, pouring the heart out to the divine at that time. But as sweet as it is, real devotion is deeper even than this. Master would at times use the phrase, "no more with words." In one place he said, "No more with words do I pray, but with my love, my heart, my soul." And in another place he said, "I pray no more with words, but only with wistful yearning. I rebuke my boisterous love for thee. On the cushion of peace I silently adore thee." Beautiful, isn't it? Beyond thought. Just that pure feeling welling up to the divine. Last week I was talking with a devotee, and we've been friends for a number of years. And I was asking him about his meditation routine. And he said, "Well, I usually wake up around 2 in the morning, and I sit on my bed for meditation. And then I start the invocation, which takes me about 30 minutes. All of you know the invocation, Heavenly Father, Mother, Friend, Beloved God, naming the 6 gurus and saints of all religions. Well, without me asking, he realized I was curious as to why it took him 30 minutes to do the invocation. And he was kind enough in his humble way to explain. And he said that as soon as he assumed the meditation posture, he was very aware of the breath. And then he would start, Heavenly Father. And usually the breath would go away, and he would just be swept up in that feeling of love for the divine. He said, after some time, the breath will come, and Divine Mother, and again the consciousness is swept up. He said, by the time I get to Jesus and Krishna, it takes a really long time. This is the depth of devotion that we want to aspire for. Starting out with words, but let it become that wordless expression of our love for the divine. Master said, humility and love alone can attract the divine response, nothing else. Humility and love alone can attract the divine response, nothing else. So we need the techniques to purify the consciousness, to interiorize the consciousness, so that then we can have this devotion for the divine. The path Master gave us is techniques plus devotion. These two lead us to that divine communion, that actual experience of the presence of God. Master has given us so much. But we also have responsibility to Master. I think oftentimes the disciple, especially in the beginning, thinks in terms of what the Guru can do for them. But in the Guru Gita, Lord Shiva said it's the disciple's duty to spread the Guru's teachings. It's the disciple's duty to spread the Guru's teachings. And the disciple does this by becoming an example of the Guru's teachings. I know oftentimes devotees, actually new people coming to Hollywood Temple, I will ask them, how did you find out about Self-Realization Fellowship? And oftentimes they'll say, well, I met this person and there was something special about them. They were so kind, they were so calm, they were always happy or whatever. And I asked them what they were into, and they told me they were meditating and members of SRF. And so it's so inspiring to see that devotees are living Master's teachings to such an extent that they become examples and thereby are spreading the Guru's teachings. Once we enter the Guru-disciple relationship, our primary role is that of a disciple. Our primary role in life is that of a disciple. And we are disciples 24/7. We should always be humble enough to try to exemplify Master's teachings and not what the ego is interested in. It's in this way we're helping the Guru's mission. And Master's mission is to bring those tools that can give anybody that wants them the means for God communion and how to live their life so, as he put it, they can stand unshaken amidst the crash of breaking worlds. It won't matter what the outer circumstances are. They'll have that inner security. But if Master was in the body today, what would he tell us to do? What would he tell us to concentrate on? Well, Ma said he would tell us, the counsel I would offer for getting through the world crisis is the very same I have already given you as the comprehensive SRF teachings of God communion and balanced spiritual living. The pattern of life that humanity at large must and will adopt as we evolve into the higher age. We of all people should be living the teachings to help this transition into the higher age. It's true, Master did on occasion talk about the general pattern of things to come. But if we compiled everything that he said along these lines, it would not constitute probably 1/1000th of 1% of all he gave in his talks, in his lessons, in his writings. We as his disciples need to concentrate on the core of his teachings, on the meditation, on devotion, on how to live principles. These will bring more light into our life and into the world. The word guru comes from the two Sanskrit words, gu, meaning darkness, and ru, meaning that which dispels. So the guru's job description is to dispel the darkness in the disciple. And are we concentrating? Are we cooperating, I should say, with that? Are we helping him to dispel that darkness? Are we making conscious decisions before we hit the sin key or before we allow a train of thought? Are we serving as light bearers or are we contributing to the darkness? One of the people who sent the doom and gloom email said at the end, "If you want more information on this subject, I have it. Just let me know." So do you have your pen and paper ready? No, I'm not going to give you their email address. But if you're interested, I would suggest an article entitled "The End of the World." The End of the World. It's in Divine Romance. See what your guru has to say about it. See the deep metaphysical significance there. The point is, we should know Master's teachings. Use them to make our consciousness more transparent for that light of God, those divine qualities of God. Then we have something of real value to share with others, something that will uplift them, something that will give them a sense of well-being. Recently at Hollywood Temple, I spoke about some of the things we've talked about tonight. And after the service, a lady came up to me and she said, "Brother, I was sitting in the front row and I was singed by the fire coming from the pulpit." So, I hope none of you have been singed tonight. But it's definitely important that we realize the effect of our thoughts, the importance of the quality of thoughts that we have, and that we make conscious decisions of what we're sharing with others. And also that we be a light bearer for Master's teachings, doing whatever we can to bring light to whatever situation we may be in. And lastly, we need to be absolutely convinced, beyond doubt, that through deep meditation and devotion, we can have that divine communion and experience that pure love and bliss consciousness that is right there within each and every one of us. I'd like to close with these words of Master. He said, "Just beneath the shadows of this life is God's wondrous light. The universe is a vast temple of His presence. When you meditate, you will find doors opening to Him everywhere. When you have communion with Him, not all the ravages of the world can take away that joy and peace. When you have communion with Him, not all the ravages of the world can take away that joy and peace." So I hope this helps.